episode of GradStop TV, and I'm joined today by serial entrepreneur Peter Sage. Peter, thank you for being with us today.
Absolute pleasure.
Yeah, I know Peter's a very, very busy man. He was just saying to us before he's been in 3 continents in the past week.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
So he's thankfully made a lot of time for us today. And yeah, hopefully we'll cover some topics that will be of interest to everyone out there. So yeah, Peter, first of all, I wanted to start with, you're often labelled as an extreme entrepreneur. What does that mean to you, an extreme entrepreneur?
Great question. I mean, there's a lot of different types of entrepreneurs that are out there. Entrepreneurship, the essence of entrepreneurship is really the ability to either spot or create opportunities, or say spot existing opportunities that most people either wouldn't see, or have the ability to action and bring to fruition in a way that is creative and inventive enough to add enough value to turn it into a commercial opportunity. That's the essence of entrepreneurship. So you have serial entrepreneurs, which are repeat entrepreneurs. You have startup entrepreneurs that favour sort of more the creation of the idea. You have turnaround entrepreneurs that go in and fix things and make them more viable. You have a whole different aspect of entrepreneurship that comes under that umbrella or mindset. And it was actually a gentleman called Professor Santos, who's the head of entrepreneurship for INSEAD, which is a top 5 business school based in Paris in Fontainebleau.
You're on the board for INSEAD.
I sit on the board for INSEAD, yes. I think I'm the only non-graduate they've ever invited. They're kind of the token idiot, I guess. But it was Professor Santos, Felipe, he's a very good friend of mine, who turned around and introduced me once when I was giving the keynote address at the MBA graduate start of the year. And he introduced me as an extreme entrepreneur. And the label kind of stuck. And I think part of that is because I have a passion or a habit of taking on projects or coming up with ideas that are so far out on the edge that, if it's not 1,000 to 1, I don't get excited. So for me, that's the essence. It's being able to create something unique and big and ballsy, and really looking at something in a way that says, well, I know I have a belief that says everything is possible. There's always a way. So the challenge then isn't being able to take the opportunity and wonder if it'll work or not. The challenge is, how do I figure out what the actual path is, hidden or not, that would allow this vision that I have to become a reality? Because if I didn't have the vision, then it wouldn't have been a reality.
Exactly.
So everything I think you can conceive and believe, you can achieve, as the great Napoleon Hill once said. So from that basis, it's a case of, I wouldn't have had the idea or channeled through the thought if there wasn't an opportunity or a means to make that actionable. So it becomes kind of like a game, like a chess game.
Do you think that sort of mentality where you're like, okay, I've conceived it, so it must be possible and I can do it, do you think that's what's kept your fire so burning for, you've been doing this for over 20 years now, just setting up businesses? Do you think that's what's really kept you going?
There's a lot of different reasons. I mean, and everybody's always looking for, what's the one key, what's the one magic pill, and there isn't. Life is not an instrument, life is an orchestra. There's many different facets to the melody of our life. And for us to have some sort of level of meaning and fulfillment, you can't just focus on one thing. So for me personally, it's a mixture of many different things. I love to squeeze the drops out of the day. When you come to extreme, what's extreme for one person may be somewhat mildly entertaining for another. What may be completely out on a limb for one person wouldn't get somebody else out of bed. So it's all based on our own model of the world, and our own belief system, our own references, our own values, our own rules, and all of the aspects that go into creating what we believe or perceive to be our reality out in the world. I want to make sure that whatever has to happen when I'm out playing in this adventure we call life, that I'm going to swing the bat. Am I going to hit a home run every time? Of course not. Am I going to hit a 6 over the boundary? Of course not. It'd be boring as hell. If every time I went to a casino and put it on 36 black or whatever it is, I'd win. You get bored inside of 20 minutes. The essence of life is the dance between the certainty and uncertainty that allows you to have that sort of level inside you that says, what if? What is possible? And that calls upon your greatness to go out in the world and grab it with horns and dance with life, rather than sit behind a control box on a PlayStation and hide away from life and moan why the government makes your life a living hell and the bank interest rates are a living hell and all the other excuses that it's very easy to justify and basically be a coward and hide behind, because it doesn't take courage to be a coward. It doesn't take courage to be a pessimist. It doesn't take courage to find an excuse to blame something else. So for a lot of people, it's an easy way out. But the trade-off for that is, what are you giving up? What are you leaving on the table in terms of an experience of your day or life that you didn't swing the bat? Get out there and play. I'm not going to take it with me. The only people that tried that were the Egyptians. And what happened? We dug it up and stole it. Right? So, it's not about how do I justify myself as an entrepreneur by how much money I have. Give me a break. Your financial status as an entrepreneur, by very definition, is going to be doing this. Well, guess what? That's life. So if I think
the most secure of jobs, you would be doing that nowadays. So.
100%. And what is job security? Job security is the ability for the managing director or CEO of the company you work for to be able to run his or her business. Right? Job security is you trading off what you're worth for a level of certainty that compromises your true value. And what I mean by that, this is great for students to get their head around, by taking a job, even a well-paid job, you automatically settle for less than what you're worth. Because if you're paid, let's say £1,000 a week, or €1,000 a week, then the very definition of that value of that role to the company has to be worth more, otherwise they wouldn't be paying you what they're paying you. There has to be a margin in it of value for them. So the very definition of settling for less than what you're worth is a template that a lot of people unfortunately never get out of, because they'd rather be certain and paid less than what they're worth than risk uncertainty and go for fulfillment. So, nobody's born with all of the answers. So for everybody, it is a journey. So for me personally, my journey in my early days was very much, as you said, it was about covering up insecurities as a young man to prove to the world I was good enough. And as an externally referenced person at that time, based on a need for significance, which we all have, driven by a false belief that my net worth was equal to my self-worth. And the challenge with that is that it's the other way around. We have an emotional bank account and a financial bank account. Nobody tells us this. And most people's financial bank account leads their emotional bank account. So if you have a high financial bank account, people are happy because they get 30,000 commercial messages a day that tell you that if you have this, this and this, then you're going to be worth more as a person and people will like you and you're going to have a great time and life will be good, and etc., etc. So the frustration there preys upon the primary fear that we're not enough. So if there was one message that I'd want to leave, or a message that people could take out early on in this interview that I think would have the most value, it would be to understand that our emotional bank account leads our financial bank account. It's a leading indicator, not a lagging indicator. In other words, for our financial bank account to go up, our emotional bank account has to go up first, not afterwards. And that's why most people, give or take 10%, plus or minus 10%, earn the same this year as they earned last year. Will earn the same next year as they're earning this year. Because their emotional bank account hasn't changed. How can it? You're looking at life thinking that out here is reality and in here is the reflection. So if out here looks good, in here starts looking good. But it's the other way around. You put in here as the originator of the reflection and start making that the place that's comfortable, joyous and happy, and out here will catch up. A very easy way to sum that up is outer world follows inner world, not the other way around. So for our life to get better, for our circumstances to get better, our thoughts have to get better. Our thinking has to get better. Our attitude has to get better. Once that happens first and our emotional bank account starts to rise, our financial bank account will follow. And if you can follow that and have that level of discipline, ignore the reflection out here. If you're reacting to the reflection, you're the same as a kitten playing with its image in a mirror. And that's a closed circle. So my outer world isn't doing very well, so therefore, guess what happens in here? I feel depressed. So after that, what happens? I put depressed thoughts in here. What has to happen outside in the reflection that people perceive to be reality? Following out on it, after a delay, you'll have more stuff to be unhappy about, which causes more unhappy, and you're on a negative cycle. You have to stop that, say, you know something, I don't care what my world looks like right now. I'm in debt, I've got people chasing me, I've got my girlfriend upset or left me, I've got the wrong grades on my account. Whoa, stop. Let me start putting the right image in here and we'll see what happens and catches up. And people that live like that will tell you the magic and you won't believe it. Because it's hard to do that when you've got a mortgage to pay on Friday and no money in the bank.
Yeah.
But if you've linked your self-worth and net worth together, it's almost impossible. Because therefore, you know, if I can't pay my mortgage, oh my God, what's going to happen? Yeah, ultimately, nothing. There's no... When was the last time somebody in this country starved to death? It doesn't happen. For the first time in human history, we're the first generation that has food certainty. My parents had rations in the war.
Yeah.
So, you're living in a society for the first time in 100,000 years of human civilization that we can afford to unhook our self-worth and net worth and be recognizing the fact that we're far more than who we give ourselves credit for. And therefore, if we can unhook that, get this right to begin with, the finance will take care of itself.
Do you think that, going back to the few points you just made there, the default state that yes, we do have food security now, and especially living in a Western country, we have security of pretty much everything we do in life. Even if we're unemployed, everything, we still receive benefits, we still have some sort of security. Do you think that sort of default state, like especially for a generation like mine who have just like, I've only been here 22 years and I've just grown up that way, do you think that sort of security is a bad thing? Because then you intrinsically, you link like security to being happy. So you're not willing to take that risk in your mind and say, okay, I can separate my net worth from my self-worth. Whereas maybe 100 years ago, when they had to go out and fight for food, they had to be like, okay, in my head, I have to get food, otherwise I will die. So they were able to just separate those things and say, okay, I have to get it, and they'll find a way. Do you think it's a bad thing that we now are stuck in that period of security around us all the time?
Great question, and again it comes back to one of the original points I made about everybody has their own model of the world. Everybody has their own way of being able to interpret information, filter that through their belief system, their references, their upbringing, their experience, and come up with their own conclusions. So for some people that is absolutely where they stay today. They've been brought up in a society where things have been provided to a point where they take them for granted. Most people today get upset if they don't have broadband on their Wi-Fi. Right? Yeah. You know, they're upset because their iPad ran out of battery or McDonald's ran out of barbecue sauce. Right? As opposed to, 50 years ago, you're unhappy if you suddenly contracted something they don't have an antibiotic for yet. Right? And it's all a case of contrast. But the flip side to that is there's a lot of people that say, wow, the fact I don't have to worry about food, the fact I don't have to worry about my society taking care of me, gives me the freedom to go and explore and take the risks, knowing that there's a fallback position that's never been there before. So the predisposition is down to the individual. The discernment is down to the individual based upon their own thoughts, beliefs, etc. And that's why to be internally referenced rather than externally referenced is the biggest gift you can give somebody in terms of their psychology and making a shift. So anybody watching this may turn around and say, well, yeah, but it's okay for you because fill in the blank. Well, no. I was born on a council estate, with no, sort of prospects. I had two parents that were supportive, which is great. Not everybody has. But everybody has a story. And unfortunately, most people don't understand that your destiny is not your biography. The one thing that stops people from getting what they want, and I could go through many hours of awareness before people see this, but I'll lay it on the line. The one thing that stops people from getting what it is that they want, more than anything else, is the story they tell themselves about why they cannot have it.
Very true.
Create a new story, create a new life. Oh yeah, but if you had my parents, and if you had my background, if you had my boss, and fill in the blank. Bullshit. Right? Everybody takes responsibility for where they're at, and if you could move away from a level of victim mode to say, something, I'm stuck with that. Life doesn't support a reactive level of consciousness. Life supports you doing something with the gift that you've given. Why are you here? Some people don't like that question, it's too big and scary. It imposes on them maybe a call to action or a call to greatness that's more than checking in at 9 AM on a Monday morning in a job they don't like. Right? Or sitting down and watching X Factor. Right? So, why are you here? 400 million to 1 is the math. It's a question. why did you want to be here so badly? And I guarantee the answer to that question probably is not to go and work in a job I don't enjoy for something that I'm not worth, for a future that doesn't inspire me. But everybody has to make the call. What prevents that is the ability to handle uncertainty in a world where certainty doesn't actually exist. It's a myth. It's a 21st century, somewhat 20th century manufactured creation of reality that we believe there's certainty, and you've only got to go to the out to reality and ask anybody who here has had what they thought they were certain about, job, career, relationship, pulled. Go ask the people in Syria right now what level of certainty they thought they had compared to 2 years ago. And you get a very different answer. So there is no such thing. The only difference is the tree doesn't stand there worrying if it's going to get blown down by a storm tomorrow. It just deals with what happens in the moment. And that's one of the best lessons we can take out of that.
It seems like you've been dealing with uncertainty since age 17 when you first started your first business, and maybe you'd like to tell that story. I think that's quite an inspiring story, how you just gave away your last £5 at a boot sale and just went for it. I mean, did you ever look back and say, oh, that was a mistake, or do you always say, no, that was the best thing I ever did?
Well, that's the best thing I ever did. I mean, I could, it was certainly a decision at the time that I felt there was no real downside. You see, if you've got your last £5, it's not a lot to lose. But for me personally, just to recap the story if you'd like me to, I was never really that academic at school. I'm not a clever guy. I couldn't spell MBA. Right, so from my side, school was never really my thing. It taught me two things, and in England, unfortunately, I've travelled around schools for 20 years now, talking about entrepreneurship. And for me, school hasn't really changed much. It teaches you two things predominantly: how to pass tests and work for somebody else. So for me, I left my dad and I says, right. He says, what are you getting into? I don't know, but if I jump in the deep end, I can only swim. I'm looking for opportunity. And I happened to hear somebody mention the fact that they wanted some toys and they couldn't get any. And I thought, wow, there wasn't a huge market for toys at a car boot sale that they'd been to. They went to a car boot sale looking for some cheap toys that weren't. And I'm like, oh, opportunity. So I had a look and there wasn't. So I had my last £20. My dad paid me £40. I paid mum £10 board. I paid my friend £10 I owed him. And I went to a wholesaler. I kind of blagged my way in. I bought £15 worth of toys. I drove to a car boot sale on a Sunday morning in a little Mini that I had. And 6'3" in the Minis, no fun. And this is before the days Minis were cool. Now Minis are cool. Before BMW bought them, they were not cool. Right? And so, looking out of the sunroof, see where I'm going. And I got to this car boot sale and I wound my window down and I handed my last £5 through the window to the stall owner, if you like, to the pitch owner, to go on and set up my little, I didn't even have a table, I couldn't afford a little paste table at that point. I had a blanket and put my toys on the blanket, and I sold all my £15 of the toys for £30. And I went back the next week, I bought £25 of the toys. My mum gave me credit because she saw I was trying to do something on board. And, I paid my last £5 through the window, sold the lot for £50. And I built up and up over about 6 weeks until I got enough stock to just about cover a market stall, a proper market stall. And I started on the markets and then Sunday markets, and I started doing toy parties. And really, I left my dad in June, and by October, I'd made my first 1,000. And I was so excited, not because I had £1,000, I'd never had £1,000 before, but because I'd made it and not earned it. And for me, there was a huge difference. As I said, the only way you earn money is if the CEO or managing director of the company you work for deems that you've added enough value in order to pay you, and happens to be running his business in a way that allows the company to do that. But that can be taken away in a heartbeat. Whereas your ability to make money by recognizing opportunities to add value can never be taken away. That'll always exist in a modern economy.
In terms of that very important point about noticing opportunity throughout your career as an entrepreneur, I don't even know if you can call that a career, it's more of a lifestyle.
A journey.
Do you think that's what do you actually look for when you're looking for new ventures? Because I know you said you really like to swing the bat out there, and you've been involved in loads of different industries. One of them was energy gyms, and to jump into an industry like gyms where there's so much competition there, how do you know that there's an opportunity there for me to make or add value there?
Great question. And the challenge is that most people come at it through a certainty mindset, which means that they're going to SWOT analysis it, they're going to spreadsheet it, Excel it to death, ask their friends, have sleepless nights, and if the balance of probability looks like it's favouring more certainty than uncertainty, then they may go ahead and risk some capital or time or effort.
Yeah.
I don't look at that. What I'm looking for is what hooks me emotionally, what grabs me here, what makes me look at that thing, something, I like that. I don't know why I like it, it makes no sense on paper, but hell, I'm in. Yeah. I'll figure out a way, I'll make it work. And with energy, myself and my partner Jan Spaticchia, he and I founded Energy back in 2002, and health has always been one of my values, and I enjoyed the gym lifestyle as a customer since I've been sort of 17, but as an owner I saw an opportunity to add value in a way that most people don't in that industry, which is focusing on what I call the wow factor for the clients. How do we add value in a way that blows people away, that doesn't cost any more? See, how do most gyms compete? Spec. Who's got the latest treadmill? Who's got a bigger jacuzzi? Right? Or they compete on price, which is never, it's the last way you ever want to compete. Right? Because you're only an undercut from your competition from going out of business. If you compete here instead of here, you think smarter, not harder, then you'll always be able to work a niche that is massively missing in today's industry, which is in customer service. So with my gyms, we made sure that there was £500 in the safe at each and every club, and everybody from the guy that taught the aerobics to the club manager, to the personal trainers, to the people that swept up the studios at night, everybody had the ability and the authority, without question, to go to the safe and request up to £50 a time to look for an opportunity to solve a guest problem or impress somebody. And I give you dozens of examples. A quick one would be for as an idea. We had a gentleman come in who had got a flat tire, and the receptionist, all the staff are taught to have high sensory acuity. So they're hunting for opportunities to impress. That was the language. We're hunting for opportunities to impress. So the gentleman comes in on his cell phone, he walks through the turnstile at reception, he's moaning to his friend that he's just noticed he's got a flat tire on his car. He goes to have a workout, he's going to figure it out. He comes back after an hour, and the receptionist, who happened to hear the conversation, turns around and says, Mr. Jones, by the way, I couldn't help but notice or overhear the fact that you complained you had a flat tire. I went out, I saw the car, it was your front curbside tire, and it had a nail in it. It's our parking lot, it's our nail, we take responsibility. So while you're working out, we had a mobile quick fit guy come over, he's changed the tire, there's the nail, you've got a new tire and the car's been washed. Total, wow. Total cost about £50. Right, okay, 2003 prices, but you get the idea. About £50. Now, what do you think Mr. Jones is thinking, other than wow, when David Lloyd opens up next door and has a promotion on because they have a bigger jacuzzi than we do? Where's he going?
It's going to you.
Nowhere.
Of course.
Who else does that? And what's it cost? So, and chunk up, because a CFO here or financial director would look at that and say, well, how do you measure return on investment? I can't factor that into a spreadsheet. That's the biggest challenge with most businesses. They don't have a level of strategic leadership at the top that recognises that what people are made of. They look at numbers, ROI, shareholder reports, bullshit. Right? So again, it's financial emotional bank account. They've got the lagging indicator, not the leading indicator, and they're chasing that. So that £500 that I put in the safe could probably generate anything up to 10, 20 different wow experiences that month. And the biggest challenge I had was convincing the people, the staff, to spend the money. Because they'd worked in clubs previously where they were taught to cut costs, save money. So, I'm like, if that money's still there at the end of the month, I want to know why, because you're not looking for enough opportunities to impress. So when we conditioned that, and they got the joy out of being able to add value and see a smile on somebody else's face that always makes us feel better than our own, and they got in touch with that, it became easy. I've had, many companies over the years, 20 plus, some have failed majestically, some have wiped me out, some should have stayed ideas when I was drunk, and some have been really good and gone to add value, and that's the essence of an entrepreneur. You're not going to strike home runs every time, but what does the game become? Virtually every single morning, I give myself a break if I'm traveling, but certainly this morning, I get up virtually 6 a.m. depending on where I'm at. If I'm late or working on different time zones for conference calls at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, I'll cut myself some slack, but I generally do a good 5-6 hours sleep a night. I'm very happy with my body's condition to do everything it needs to do on 5-6 hours. I'll get up at 6 a.m. First thing I'll do is I'll usually drink a pint of wheatgrass or a greens-based drink, just to alkalize my body and give it some nutrition, some base, rehydrate, flush out some toxins, but health's a value, so that's why I do it. I'll sit and I'll meditate for 20 minutes, just get my mind right, and in that meditation I'll connect to gratitude. I'll remind myself why it's a great day to be alive, what's great in my life right now, regardless of the chaos and I experience more chaos in my life than most people. I'm managing multiple businesses simultaneously around the world, huge amounts of deals, lawsuits, litigation, staff problems, overheads, all the kind of fun and games that's a natural part of business. But that's part of the game. I'm cool with that. That's just, in advance it's going to happen. But so I can focus and think about this. What's right and what is wrong is always available. Most people choose to focus on what's wrong instead of choosing focus on what's right. So I make sure I'm focusing on what's right, why I'm happy to be here. If I'm still breathing, I'm healthy. I've got friends around the world that I connect with. I've got the opportunity to share insights with people that hopefully can add some sort of value at some level. And know that I'm here for a bigger reason than some egocentric, selfish way to prove I'm good enough to the world by earning money. Right? I'll read. I'll discipline myself every morning. I'll read usually some sort of spiritual or personal development level book. Just read a fantastic book actually by John Randolph Price, written in the 80s, called Super Beings.
Super Beings.
And it's predominantly, again, raising your level of consciousness. Something that Albert Einstein was a big fan of. And his most famous quote, I believe, you can never solve a problem with the same level of thinking that created it. Most people don't understand that because they're too busy trying to figure out what that phrase means from the same level of consciousness. I certainly did for a while. I get it, and I'll spend time then journaling. I'll visualize. I visualize every morning. And then I'll go and invest half an hour, 45 minutes to an hour in my physical side. So I'll hit the gym. This morning I ran through Hyde Park. It's a very rare, beautiful sunny day in London. And I cracked out a nice 5k around Hyde Park this morning and just was appreciative. Again, you see people running with a bad look on their face because they're 30 seconds behind their personal best. Their rules for access to joy don't make it easy. I was excited because I saw people feeding the...
That's a very poignant point, I think. I think all the great people through history have kind of noticed that they're not just looking at a wall or a tree, they're looking at something more than that. Or when they look at a problem, they're not just looking at a problem at face value, they're looking at something more than that. Taking on from that, do you think there's any one person in history who you've read about or you've even met who has had like a massive influence on your life and your journey?
Great question. It's always back to the one again. The answer is
more than one.
Mentors. I've had a lot of mentors in my life. I'm very pleased and privileged to got access when I was 18 to a beautifully talented and wise gentleman called George Zalucki. And please Google him. He's Zalucki. George is a beautiful man. I was with him recently again in Madrid. And a lot of my psychology really had a firm grounding in some of his teachings, which gave me easier access to joy and fulfillment, but also understood that we're responsible for how we think. Most people are not. They leave it out to the outside world to dictate the inner world, not understanding that you're chasing reflection in the mirror if you ever do that. And obviously I've spent a lot of time the last couple of decades with Tony Robbins. I'm very proud to be a trainer for Tony and work with him for a long time. Other influences, obviously my parents. My parents are very interesting because my mother was a special minister for the Catholic Church, and it was a very interesting dichotomy to grow up in. But what it taught me was tolerance, because my dad never judged my mum for her and her God Squad friends, as he used to jokingly label them. And my mum never pushed down my dad's throat any of her religious beliefs or connotation. They just accepted each other for who they were. That's where they're at. Get on with it.
Would you like to share any key bit of advice that you would have for anybody out there watching in their 20s right now, like on the edge of their lives kind of thing? I like to think of it as, do you have any advice that you think you would have wished you had in your 20s? Not turned out too badly, but...
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, I also want to put the caveat in here. I'm not here to impose, nor do I have any right to impose on anybody else model of the world. I can share with you some examples of what's worked for me, and that's really where I want to come from. But if I was to volunteer some insights to people, especially in their 20s, that may be watching this, that would shortcut the process and maybe help put them on a path or act as a guidepost to a path of more fulfillment than frustration, then again, a lot of the points we've already covered. One, get internally referenced, not externally referenced. Stop swimming in goop. Get out of the good opinion of other people.
Yeah.
Right? Own yourself. You don't need anyone else to validate you. You're good enough already. Case closed. You were born good enough. 400 million to 1, give me a break. You showed up good enough. Now, on top of that, get focused about what it is that you want. Most people, unfortunately, are massively focused, have total clarity on exactly what it is they don't want. You know, somebody, what do you want? Oh, well, I don't want to be unhappy, I don't want to be skinned, I don't know, whoa. Let me share with you the secret behind the secret. You're familiar with the law of attraction and everything else. And I know most of the guys in The Secret that have been friends of mine for years. I've been on holiday with several of them, and the Secret was a great way of being able to get somebody from what I call a base level of victim consciousness, what I call to-me mentality. Yeah? You want a crash course on raising your level of consciousness? I'll throw it out there. Most people start off at to-me. Yeah? My life would be great, the world would be great, I'd be happy, but everything happens to me. And in order to get out of that victim mode, they're standing on the side bitching and moaning and blaming about everything, why their life doesn't work, so they don't have to take personal responsibility. If you give up blame and replace it with personal responsibility, you can move to the next level of consciousness, which is by me. You know something? I'm sick of waiting for my ship to come in. I know that's Disneyland thinking. It's never going to happen. I'm going to get in the ocean and swim towards it. Because if I'm going to create the future that I want and I deserve for myself, my family, my loved ones, then it's going to happen by me. But yeah, raise your level of consciousness or work towards that and commit to some level of personal growth. Not because you need to prove that you're good enough. Start with that. Start knowing you're damn good enough. You don't need a degree on the wall just because somebody at one point told you weren't. You give away your level of power to some external authority because somebody labelled you as an idiot or couldn't sing or weren't clever enough, and you spent the rest of your life trying to justify why they were wrong, or worse, living through the experience of the fact that you're afraid they were right.
I know Peter has to get off, so I just want to thank you, Peter, for coming on. You've shared a ton of value with our community. I really do appreciate it.
Well, very thank you, sir. It's been a pleasure. I've got total admiration and respect for people who seek out, whether half or less of what I've shared with you today is relevant or not. It's not the point. It's about your willingness to want to reach out and look at different viewpoints for the sole purpose of one, adding value, and B, offering a level of insight that some people don't want to waste, all the 20 years of mistakes that I've probably made in order to get to, and your willingness to serve and add value and contribute on that shines forward, and I applaud you for that. So thank you for this opportunity, for allowing me the platform to hopefully contribute something of value.
Thank you very much, Peter, and hopefully we can get you back on the show sometime soon.
I look forward to that. You can pin me down and I'll let you know next time I'm flying through. And until that time, yourself and everybody watching here, as I said, never ever let anybody tell you you can't do it. You were born good enough. Go out, put a smile on somebody else's face, and above all, stay amazing.
Guys, you heard it from the man himself. Take care.